Ladies and gentlemen, today on the program, a fabulous singer-songwriter and a very good friend. We're talking music, touring, coffee, Sweden, unfortunate band names, and appliances that kill with the great Sarah MacDougall. Wait till you hear what her first band was called. Roll intro! Hello, you're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. We want this to be a slice of life. So you're sitting way back there now.
Yeah. Have we started?
Oh, yeah. We're in. We're so in.
Okay.
We're so in right now.
Oh, I just didn't want to slurp too much coffee in the
No,
mic.
do it because we want the audience to think they're sitting in a cafe with us.
Okay.
But the coffee you've made is really good.
You like it? It's
do.
strong.
Yeah,
I'm a strong coffee
That's
person.
what makes it good.
Yep.
Too many people don't know how to make a cup of coffee.
I'd say that nothing makes me more angry than a weak cup of coffee.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you have you're really ready for a nice cup of coffee and then somebody delivers you weak coffee.
It's a very big disappointment.
Do you have like a ratio? Do you have a balance that you like to use in measuring coffee per cup of water?
I just go by eye, really. Because I use the Bodum and then I use the AeroPress.
Mm-hmm.
So for the AeroPress, I usually have like 3 spoons. And it has to like get up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Bodum, I just kind of look like, I don't know, it's maybe like a 5th of the Bodum.
All right.
Yeah.
And
then
how many cups does that deliver to you? Your 3 spoons. The audience needs to know these things. That's 1 cup. Woo!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. I go through a lot of coffee.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's probably not a good thing, but.
You just got back from Europe, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they do coffee exceptionally well.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Even in the gas stations.
Yes.
Yeah. You can get like amazing espresso or cappuccino in a gas station.
For me, in Germany, it's milk cafe, which is basically a latte.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you walk in.
I haven't tried that.
Well, it's a latte, basically. It comes out of a machine.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk up to the machine. You've seen this.
Yeah.
And you get to select whatever it is you want. Cappuccino, coffee,
and you
whatever.
think it's going to be like an American machine.
It's going to be a lousy coffee from a machine at a gas station. And so you set yourself up for what's going to be a disappointment. And then you drink the coffee and it's great.
Yeah. It's surprising.
Where's the best coffee you had in Europe?
I want to say Italy. I think Italy is the best. I had a really good coffee in Portugal too, though. So I don't know. I think something about Southern Europe. They know their coffees well.
This is interesting. I have not coffeed in either of those countries, so I cannot comment. For me, it was. Let me just, as a general statement, say the coffee I had everywhere was great. In all the countries I've been to, they just know how to do this. Even at McDonald's, it's good.
Yeah.
Vienna was probably the best cup of coffee I've had in Europe. At a cafe right downtown. Have you been to Vienna?
I haven't, no.
Oh.
One of the few places
you
I
must
haven't been.
Go.
Yeah.
It's
on my list.
It's the most beautiful city.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky to have been there even for a couple hours and to have played there. Anyways, they promised us Vienna was the best coffee. And we were determined to test this out because everybody in the band was a coffee person. And we went to this cafe and it was just magnificent. But we also had a great cup of coffee. It was like Turkish coffee in this little town called Kutna Hora in the Czech Republic. So, this is this little town.
Yeah.
And they did the whole thing with the beans and the whatever. And the coffee was great, even in the Czech Republic.
Amazing. I love that.
So, well, you've done that.
So the question is, why don't we have more good coffee places in like small towns in Canada?
I don't know. What's it like in Sweden?
Yeah. Well, in Sweden, actually, Swedes, I heard this, drink the most coffee per capita of all the countries in the world.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why they're so productive for, a small country. But it makes sense to me. It's a big cafe culture, and it's cold, so you want something warm.
It is cold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who haven't figured it out from my intro, I'm talking to Sarah MacDougall, the great Sarah MacDougall, singer-songwriter extraordinaire. And what a lot of people don't know about Sarah is that, how would you describe Sweden? You are half Swedish, or your family?
I am half Swedish. My mom's Swedish. My dad's Canadian. And I grew up in Sweden. In Sweden? Yeah.
So it's not just a random thing. How's the coffee in Sweden? I'm not just throwing random countries at her. She has some knowledge of this.
There's a reason.
Do people smoke in Sweden?
They used to. I'd say less. Definitely less and less now.
Yeah. Sweden seems... it's more progressive in some ways. I don't know, more progressive. It just seems like... in my head, it's like Italy... I feel like everybody smokes in Italy.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I just do. Sweden seems to be not that.
Everyone used to smoke, like when I was growing up, for sure. Because you could smoke in all the cafes and everything, and all the restaurants you could smoke. And then I think around 2000 they changed it, and then no one smokes now. Is
there... is it Stockholm I heard about, where you can't even really drive into the city anymore with your car? Did I hear something like that?
I think you need to like pay a toll to drive into the city.
But they're actively discouraging people from driving into the city. Is that true?
I think it's expensive to drive in.
Right. Mm-hmm. So civilized. Europe is so civilized.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think it would be very frustrating if you're on tour there, but
yeah, I guess so.
But in terms of living in the city, definitely it's civilized.
That's great. What part of Sweden did you grow up in?
In Malmö, which is in the far south, actually closer to Copenhagen.
Did you day trip to Copenhagen? Was that the thing that Malmö people did?
Yes. Yeah? There used to be a boat. Now there's a bridge.
Copenhagen looks like a beautiful city.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I have not been there.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to be in Amsterdam and in Vienna and some pretty amazing places.
Yeah.
But then, it seems like Scandinavia is not on Canadian radars.
Yeah, it's true. It's not really the first tourist place that you would, your first trip is always to like France or England or like Mediterranean, which is, understandable because it's warm.
It's okay there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And probably not as expensive as Scandinavia. So
is it expensive there?
It is, yeah.
Really?
Maybe less so now because the Swedish crown is not super strong. So
I feel like I need to go there. I think I would like it there.
Yeah.
When's the best time of year to go?
I like spring. Spring is a great time. Yeah. Usually once spring comes, like it actually comes, not like here where it's like spring comes for
teases you
2 days and then it starts snowing the next day.
Canadians have to be, in some ways, mentally very strong people.
Yeah. I actually find April like the cruelest month of the year.
T.S. Eliot was not kidding.
No.
It is because, because the winter is just a nightmare and you endure this. It's this test of the human spirit to survive the winter. And where we are, it's not even as bad as it is in a lot of places.
I heard it snowed in Calgary yesterday.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
And so you get this little peak of spring and buds start coming out and you think we did it. And then whoosh, it'll snow or it's cold and it's depressing. Like it's, for those of us who are affected by weather, April, May can be rough, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something about when you're, you start getting your hopes up and bring out your furniture into your lawn and then it starts snowing.
That's why there's no hope left in Canada. Hope is pain to us.
Yeah, you think so?
No. So you're home briefly and you've been in Europe. Where have you been?
Yeah. Italy, Portugal, England, Ireland, Sweden.
Playing shows.
How
long were you gone?
I was gone for a month and then I came back for 2 weeks and then I went back for 1 week.
Yeah. And how was it?
It was good. I think, both good and not great, I guess. Like some parts of it was hard because I was touring alone and I found that a little hard this time.
Is that normally what you do?
I realized that no, it's not.
Yeah.
I was thinking it is the normal thing that I do, but I do a lot of like one-off shows solo or like shows around Ontario or Yukon or whatever. But I don't go to Europe alone very much. And yeah, it was a challenging thing. What's
challenging about it? What's hard about being alone over there?
I think being in another country where you don't really know the culture, like specifically Italy in this case. I mean, you know the culture to a certain extent, but, dealing with car rental, driving, navigating, getting to shows, communicating with, the promoters. And a lot of the time people didn't really speak English. And
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So I found that a little challenging. You have to like really challenge yourself to, be a Zen Buddhist and just go with the flow.
Really? Are you good at that?
I think once I get through the initial frustration, then I'm okay with it. Yeah. Because then you just resign yourself and accept like, okay, I just have to just enjoy this, what this is and see the good things in it.
In the end, everything becomes a story, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to endure, and then the things that were the most heinous become the most fun stories to tell.
Exactly.
As long as everyone's survived and we're okay.
Yeah.
Have you played in Italy before?
I have, and it was a long time ago, like 7 years ago.
Oh, really?
Maybe. So I played totally different places and, dealt with different people. And, yeah.
What are audiences like in Italy?
I don't know. I think they're kind of like audiences everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
But what I realized from talking to some people is that, the circuit isn't like super developed there.
Oh, really?
And everything is kind of built around people not leaving the house until like 11 p.m. So the shows are super late.
Really? Oh, man.
Yeah. So that was definitely a thing where, you don't start your shows until really late and finish really late.
That's not something you normally do anymore.
No.
Those of us who sort of still have a foot in the indie rock and roll world are used to going on at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
But you have transcended. You've come to this magical place where your shows are earlier.
Yeah.
So we all want to get to.
Theater. Yeah. Normally I'll start around like 8 or 9.
So. Wonderful. You go to bed at a sane hour. How beautiful.
Well, the thing is like, okay, so when you're on tour and you have to check out of your hotel, which in Europe is a lot of the time 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So if you finish your show like super late, and then for me, it's like I can't actually wind down for a few hours.
Oh, really?
So if I get back like at 2, I can't really go to sleep till at least 3.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I have to get up early. And then that was the other challenge with this Italy tour is like, then I was like, okay, I leave my hotel at 10. It's like an hour drive to my next town.
Right.
And then I'm there. And what do I do?
And you don't play for 12 hours or
like
more.
My sound check is like, you know, in like 12 hours, and I have gear and suitcase and merch and all that stuff in the car. So I can't really go too far away from the car and leave all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah. What do you do with that time? Yeah, I'm having pictures of you. Well, okay, she's stuck in her car, but she's on like the edge of the Mediterranean and she's looking out over the sailboats and it's okay. But was it actually like that?
That is what I ended up doing.
Really?
Yeah. Because a lot of the time the venues provided the accommodations, so I couldn't actually it was good, but I couldn't check in.
I see.
Until after, because a lot of the time like the venues had a key or whatever, so you had to go there first. So I could never check in until after my sound check. And
oh man, and that could be at what, 7 or 8 o'clock? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, so what I did was which ended up being great. I just went to the beach and walked around, and I went to cafes and had delicious coffees.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
Yeah.
The coffee makes it all worthwhile.
Yep.
So venues treat you well there?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
My experience of Europe as a performer is just they really treat people well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to assume it's the same for the local bands. It's not just these exotic foreigners coming in who get the royal treatment, but
I think so.
You walk through the door and there's immediately a drink in your hand and people are happy to see you. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but it's like everywhere we go, we set up and it's mostly empty and we think, oh boy, is this going to be a night where there's nobody here? And then all of a sudden it's just full of people. And it could be a Tuesday or something. It's odd. Have you seen that?
I find that in Germany especially.
Yeah, we play a lot there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, audiences in Germany are amazing.
They're so good.
Yeah, they go out and they love music. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people there in a small country.
I guess so.
But yeah, they're really into their music, and they're very, what it seems to me is that they're very loyal to the venue that they like.
Oh,
so they'll go there and like see.
Doesn't matter who's playing.
Yeah, they're like open to hearing new stuff, which is awesome.
I find that there are loads of venues in Canada who tell you they have that audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh yeah, every Friday night it's packed in here. You'll do great. You'll do great. And almost invariably, 10 times out of 10, when I play that room, there's nobody at the show that night.
Yeah.
And they always give me the same bewildered look. And they're like, I don't know what happened, man. Normally it's packed. It's like, you're lying. You must be lying because there's just...
I'm sure there's a lot of venues that say the same about musicians.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I have a huge draw.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I got 60 people coming. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Because they look at the Facebook event page,
mm-hmm.
and it says, 107 people going.
Yeah.
And I automatically, I'm like, okay, it'll be like a quarter of that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People get stuck to their Netflix.
Is that what it is?
On the night of.
Netflix is to blame. I've done the same thing.
My theory is that TVs are they're like too high res now, and there's too much, drawing you back to your couch. Your couches are probably more comfortable than they used to be 40 years ago.
Maybe.
And it's nice to stay home. I don't know. I mean, I can't blame anyone, but But it's also really fun to go out.
It is. It's it's a weird thing at being a musician, trying to get people to your shows, especially as an artist who is not necessarily local or is, on the road.
Yeah.
It can be, you're always fighting against a lot of other options.
Yes.
That's tough to do. You're reaching a level, however, where you've actually built your audience.
Yeah, at least in some places.
In certain parts of the world, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long build.
It is a long build. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just is what it is. It's just, it's always been this way. You've always had to build your audience,
Yeah.
Late modern times, people have to do it maybe a little bit differently, but you still have to do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the big question, I was listening to your new record on the way in here. Mm-hmm. I just drove up from a friend's place a couple hours away. And did we destroy everything that was good?
I don't think I wrote that as everyone destroyed everything good. That's not really what I meant.
This is a lyric from the first song on your new record. The song is called Empire.
Yeah. Which
is a wonderful and epic kind of song, but there's some darkness in that song.
There is. And when I wrote that line, I was like, okay, that is really dark. Like, can I put that in there? But then I was like, yeah, I can. Because it's not about like actually, humanity destroying everything that was good and now there's only bad things left, or it's a feeling that you can have. And in this particular case, I was more like referring to a relationship that crumbled.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can feel that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you find it hard to put yourself out in that sense lyrically? Or do you tend to lyricize in more kind of abstraction? Do you allude to things, or do you come right out with things? You know what I mean?
What do you think? I think I'm more of an alluder, personally.
An alluder. That's ALL, not ELU. She's elusive. I don't know. She's.
Yeah, I think I'm not like. I guess I've written some songs that are more like very, this is how it is. But I think I like to write songs that can have multiple meanings and can be kind of universal and have different meanings for different people.
When you're doing, sorry to interrupt you. When you're writing a song like that, or any song,
mm-hmm.
Are you consciously thinking about what's behind the lyrics, or are you just allowing the lyrics to come through you and be what they are?
Both, I think.
Yeah.
I don't normally set out to, okay, now I'm going to write a song about this, because I feel like whenever I do that, it turns out to be kind of a bad song. So, yeah, I guess like I'll have an idea, and then I'll, it's kind of like a vague idea of a feeling that I want to convey more so than a specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just let the words come out, and then I edit after to have it make some sense.
Yeah, I see. So there's this kind of epic quality to your new album.
Mm-hmm.
Your songs have always had they've always had depth, and they've always had dynamic, for sure. But especially the first couple of tracks on the new record have this bigness to them.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, it's cool. It's super cool. Like, there's a lot going on in this record.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that? Do you know how much is going on this record?
I think I'm quite aware.
Yeah, it's really super. What are your feelings on how it turned out in the end?
I'm really proud of it. There is a lot going on. And I think like those songs needed that treatment. If I had like one more song that was more stripped down, maybe I would put that in. But other than that, I don't think I would, change anything.
Yeah.
I think it sounds awesome, and it's, a really amazing experience to make it.
Do you have all that stuff in your head when you go in? Now, people need to listen to the record to understand what I'm talking about, but there'll be like, okay, you'll have your chords and your melody and whatever, but then there's all this stuff around that, like the rhythms on the record, for example. Almost none of the songs has a straight backbeat. There'll be like percussive kind of drums happening and those kinds of sounds, or there'll be little lines of synth happening or something electronic happening.
Yeah.
Do you have those in your head going in, or does this grow out of recording them?
I definitely have an idea of that in my head.
Do you?
Before I go in. It might not be like, I'm not a drummer, so I'm not gonna necessarily be able to be like, okay, do exactly this.
Yeah.
But I'll have, kind of a general feel.
Yeah.
And sound that I'll want. And then what I did with this one was like discuss that in pre-production with producer Marcus. And then we went through it with the band like the next day kind of thing. And then I like doing it that way, because a lot of the time, like, I like also to challenge the drummers and the bass players. And you sort of, a lot of the time it forces them to like do something kind of out of the box too, from what they're normally doing, which you want to find some kind of balance with like challenging them and getting what you want, and also letting them do what they want to do.
Oh, interesting. So you do give them a little bit of space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I find the drum parts really, really interesting. It's one of the things, it makes a certain amount of sense for me to be paying attention to that, given what I do. But I'm always a sucker for songs that have interesting drum parts.
Yeah.
And interesting drum parts are typically not snare on 2 and 4 like they are. And that's what's happening a lot on this record. So I put it on and I listen. I'm like, oh, that's so cool that they would, because you could have played it straight.
Yeah.
But you didn't. And it made the song so much more interesting. And I've tried to do that on recordings that I've done with people recently. And sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't. But it's like, if I can go in, I recorded one song recently and I'm like, I'm determined not to have a backbeat in this song.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a snare on 2 and 4 at any point in this song. And it's from listening to records like yours that these ideas start to get into your head. Like, how can we do this differently? It's going to be more interesting. And the result of it is, on your most recent album and on some of your other stuff, it's that these songs become so much more interesting, which is really cool.
I'm really into, my favorite band is The National, and
Great
they
band.
do that
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And I think, like, from listening to them, I was like, okay, you can do so much, because a lot of their songs are really simple.
Yeah.
But then they have these really interesting, drum and bass lines, or even, sometimes guitar, piano, weird rhythmic stuff.
Yeah.
The polyrhythms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, I don't know, I'm just really into that.
It's great, and I like it too, and it's that sort of stuff that stands out and endures. For me, it's bands like Bon Iver who do that kind of stuff too. Justin Vernon has the advantage of having like a dozen people on stage with him if he wants to, but the principle remains. I really like that about your stuff. Take us all the way back. When did all of this begin for you? The music, singing?
Well, when I was 7, my parents bought a like a home organ.
Really? A home organ in Sweden?
Yes, in Sweden. And I lived in a really tiny town of 4,000 people. And they had one place where they taught organ and accordion in the same class. And it was like an 80-year-old man who was teaching it in the, scout house or whatever.
Organ and accordion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so, I learned a lot of tangos and waltzes there.
Nice.
And then after a while, I wanted to start playing guitar because we moved to a town, and my friend played the guitar, and I wanted to start writing songs with her, and this was at 11.
So immediately you're writing, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much immediately. Like, my parents actually didn't buy me a guitar right away. They, my mom had this old untunable guitar in the attic that
the old attic guitar, yeah.
that I started playing, and thankfully, I didn't have perfect pitch, so I could play it and not be too bothered by it being out of tune. Until then, I started taking some guitar lessons, and my guitar teacher convinced my parents to buy me a proper guitar.
Really?
Yeah. And then from there, I was like, from the beginning, I was more interested in writing my own stuff than to learn other people's music.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I just started writing.
Were you creative in other ways? Were you an artist or anything like that?
Yeah, drawing. I think I've lost that ability a little bit now.
Really?
Yeah, because I just haven't done it very much. I'd like to get back into painting at some point.
I know so many singer-songwriters who are also visual artists.
Yeah.
It's weird. Those parts of your brain must connect in some way.
Well, I think for me, it's like I like to keep being creative, but the music is like a job too. So,
right.
So sometimes you just like need a break from that, but
you want to keep that
want to do something,
part of your creativity engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. And so, at what point did you think, I want to go somewhere in music?
At 13, I decided that I was going to be a music producer.
Producer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you were recording yourself at that point, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was.
So you had this. I
had a 4-track.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were into creating these sounds and stuff.
Yeah. I've always been really into technology and recording, myself and like bouncing tracks. And this was like before Pro Tools existed.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I remember telling my dad that I was going to be a music producer, and he basically laughed in my face.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. And he's a golf pro, so he shouldn't have laughed that hard, but
I'm just going to make a bunch of jokes about that, but it's like, yeah, okay, all right. So you can be was he a golf pro in Sweden too? Was that what he was doing there?
Yeah.
Swedish golf pro. That's all right.
I know.
But you can't be a singer-songwriter. You can't be a producer or anything like that. Golf pro you can be, but you can't be that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But nevertheless, Sarah MacDougall persisted. Then what happened?
Then I played in a bunch of psychedelic rock bands as a teenager.
Nice.
And we mostly played in our rehearsal space, more so than playing a lot of live shows. I think at the time there wasn't really that many places for, there weren't many places for teenagers to play anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And in Sweden, they have this amazing thing where if you're 4 people, you can get money to have your own rehearsal studio.
Wow.
You just have to be a club, basically a registered club. You could be any kind of club. So it could be like a sewing club, a drawing club,
right.
But then you get a certain amount per month to buy supplies and to have a space.
Does that still exist?
Yeah.
Wow. Doug Ford, are you listening?
I know. It's amazing, right? Which is partly why I think there's such a great music scene coming out of Sweden, because actually, it provides places for people to play music.
Encourages the arts?
Yes.
For those of you who are not from Ontario, Canada, my reference to Doug Ford is to the current premier of our province, who, among many cuts, has decided to cut a bunch of funding to music and the arts. So, anyways, Sweden, like the rest of Europe, way ahead of us on all of this stuff. Sorry to drop in there with a political message, because I'm not much of a political person anymore, but that's incredible. And Sweden still does that. And so, I mean, hey, that's probably how ABBA got started.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So you started essentially a rock and roll club.
Yes.
And got funding for a space.
Yeah. We got all our strings paid for, all our drumsticks and, stuff like that.
I could use that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to assume you were recording your band at that point, were you?
I was.
Do those recordings still exist?
They do.
What were your bands called?
Oh my God. Okay, this is very embarrassing.
You don't have to say anything you don't want to. You're under no pressure.
Yeah. Well, my first band, which was just my friend and I, my friend Sarah.
Was called Two Sarahs.
We had watched the movie Hair.
Uh-huh.
And we'd memorized all the lyrics and whatever. And there's one song that mentions cunnilingus. And we had no idea what it meant.
Oh no.
Because we were 11. And so our first band was called Cunnilingus.
Of all the interviews I've ever done in all the different environments with all the different people for all the different reasons, I have never been more happy that I asked a question than that one. I could probably stop my career at this moment and say, I did it. I got the greatest answer of all time. Yeah. Did anybody else around you know what that meant?
Well, so we told our parents, but they didn't seem to know. So I don't know. I feel like my dad should have known, being Canadian and everything, but
he should have known.
He really should. It says a lot about it.
To be fair, golfers don't talk about that sort of thing.
That's true.
Right? So.
That's true. You have to give him a bit of slack because he was a golfer.
That's right.
And my mom was Swedish, so
right.
But then we figured that out. So at 12, we changed our name to Spasmodic Swimmers.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And then we changed it again later on to Granny Takes a Trip.
Why did you change Spasmodic Swimmers? That has alliteration and everything.
I know. Yeah,
it
was probably the best one.
Of course, they would have been SS logos, and that's maybe a little bit dicey. But
yeah.
And there are recordings of those bands that exist?
Yes.
Oh. Come on, release them.
I think I'd need the other people's consent to do that, but maybe one day something will hit some kind of public space.
That would be so fun. This is Grammy-winning artist Sarah MacDougall's first band, Cunnilingus. Here's her evolution. Spasmodic Swimmers.
Yeah.
All the names were in English.
Yeah, all our songs were in English.
Were they? What am I hearing?
Oh, it's my dishwasher.
Ah, it sounds like the ice cream man.
It's so
is coming.
new. I don't even know what it is. Wait, maybe.
These are slice of life conversations, people.
It opens on its own.
Does it?
Yeah. It's very high tech. You can even get an app for it if you want.
Can you?
Yeah. You can turn it on remotely.
I was just at my friend's place, and he's running his whole house from his iPad.
Yeah.
He's turning on the lights, and he's flipping things around. And
my sister has that too.
Yeah?
Yeah. And they like to scare you, like if they're not at home and you're in their house, and then they just turn on the lights and turn them off. Get the lights going.
They have like it rigged up to open and close the drawers, and like it's like a poltergeist kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the voice tech now, where people are just telling their house to do things. Hey, house, whatever, order light bulbs. I'm getting left behind rapidly.
I'm struggling with how much I'd want to, get into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a smart lock on my back door.
Do you? How does that work?
You have a code.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I had construction people here, I can give them their own code, so I don't have to give them a key, and then I can just disable that code whenever I want. So it's very useful that way. And I don't have to have a key, so that's a good thing.
There's some smart stuff happening too, but your appliances are all like the new ones. Mine are, I'm going to call vintage.
Yeah.
My appliances. These new ones talk to each other, and they start like there's a book. I can't remember the name of the book right now. It was all about these sort of modern appliances with their internet connections and AI kind of getting smart.
Mm-hmm.
And then attacking humanity,
Oh, I see. It was like a science fiction book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot remember what it was called. Anyways.
I think,
it's this whole Skynet
there's a lot of
thing.
Discussion about this right now.
The AI
it's a reality that's coming for sure.
James Cameron, when he wrote the first Terminator movie, dude was a prophet.
Yeah. We
created Skynet, and it got smart, and it wiped us out. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Dude, like, where did he get that from? Because I don't know. It feels like we're inching ever closer to that.
Or did he create it?
Maybe he did.
Like, did his idea create, what scientists started to do?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's actually what happens in the Terminator franchise, is that they begin to develop the technology to create these things because they found a piece of the technology that came back from the future that winds in on itself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm losing it right now. And it's happening. The refrigerator is going to attack me. It's going to open its doors and swallow me whole. Which, is not the segue I was looking for from the Cunnilingus band, but everything evolves. That's the point, is that everything evolves.
It does. Thank God.
How did we get to Sarah MacDougall, singer-songwriter, making a record and beginning to do this? How did that happen?
Well, so I was really into recording. So, when Pro Tools came out and all that stuff back in 19 tickety-boo.
Pro Tools was a book that you could get at that point, and you could set your tape up.
Yeah. Yeah, you still had tapes, really. Then I, my first laptop, I had a recording studio at home, like the little home studio. I bought one mic, and that's how I recorded all my first demos, and one, sort of not album, but kind of a collection of demos that I, sent around to people.
Yeah.
And then I also, went further into studying audio engineering and stuff like that. So my actual first album, I engineered myself in like a big studio in Vancouver.
Awesome. Yeah. Was it released on a label?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It was called Copper Spine Records, which is a Vancouver label. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What year was that?
2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been pretty much full-time music since then?
Pretty much. I worked part-time when that record came out. I worked part-time working with people with disabilities.
I didn't know that.
And then when that record came out, I kind of just went on the road.
Yeah.
So I went on the road for 2 years.
Wow.
And basically 2 years straight. Like I didn't have a home or anything.
Yeah.
And then I moved up to the Yukon and got my second album finished. And
what was the Yukon connection?
I just went up there on tour.
Oh, you just liked it?
Yeah.
What'd you like about the Yukon?
Everything.
Really? Well, tell
no,
me
not
more.
everything, I guess, but a lot of things. I'd say, first of all, the community of people and musicians is amazing up there. Very supportive.
You were in Yellowknife?
Whitehorse.
No, sorry, Whitehorse. The two of them.
It's okay. Everyone does
it.
There's
2 cities, Yellowknife, Whitehorse. And I was just thinking, you were in Whitehorse, and I said you were in Yellowknife.
Yeah.
You were in Whitehorse.
Whitehorse, yeah.
Which I'm going to assume most of the people listening to this have never been to before.
Probably, yeah.
Tell us about Whitehorse.
It's a small town. I think it has about 25,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of plopped in the middle of nowhere. And there's mountains all around it. And it's a mining town to begin with.
Yeah.
And it's on a river, the Yukon River, which has the Whitehorse Rapids, which is why the town is called the Whitehorse.
Yeah, makes a certain amount of sense.
Yes. And it's a very peaceful place that surprisingly has a lot of music and a lot of arts.
Really?
And tons of, photographers, visual artists.
Oh, there must be so much visual happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it has an eclectic mix of people. So like artists, miners, and government workers.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting place. And of course, First Nations communities.
Of course, yeah.
And I don't know. It's a really good quality of life up there. You have like the trails on your doorstep. And
I'm imagining really clean air and big skies.
Really clean air, really good water.
Yeah.
Big skies, beautiful.
And you moved into like a cabin
cold.
there, did you not? Yeah, cold, I'm sure. So those are your cabin days, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember this. There's a backstory with Sarah and I. So at the end of every podcast, I say good things happen when you put yourself out there, right? It's my catchphrase. And I put myself out there a few years ago when I started a music blog, London Groove Machine, and one of the people I wound up being introduced to and interviewing was you, Sarah, which I did twice, I think, for the blog. So I know some of the backstory here. I'm just throwing out prompts, so you'll tell people the stories that you've told me before. Right. But you literally moved up to the Yukon and moved into a cabin.
I did. Yeah, I was house sitting a cabin because another artist up there offered it to me because he went on the road. So he was like, well, just take my cabin while I'm away. And didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Really? Really?
Although it was a very comfortable cabin. It had electricity, but it didn't have any running water or anything like that. And it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't used to, minus 40. And
that's summertime.
It was winter. But
yeah. What do you do we have no running water and it's minus 40. Where do you get water from?
I went downtown to a friend's place and just got water from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I went to the gym like every day for a shower. And I was probably the most fit I've ever been my whole life. Because, once you're at the gym, it's like, well, I might as well work out.
I might as well work out. Yeah. Was it like 24-hour darkness up there?
Yeah, in the winter, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's maybe like 20 hours.
Does that affect you?
It
would affect
does.
me, I think.
I think that's why I have like such an aversion now to like March and April, because by that time I feel like, having lived in Whitehorse, and by that time it just like it should be warmer and it should be, more light and sun and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just remember after my first winter there, looking myself in the mirror in March and just like, I don't even recognize this like pale ghost in the mirror. It's like cabin fever is like a real thing.
I bet it must be.
Yeah.
Did it snow a lot?
It's a desert, so it doesn't actually snow a lot.
So it's not like
the snow is there the whole winter.
Right.
Like, it never goes away.
It's not like, because you see other parts of Canada, like in the Maritimes, where the snow is higher than your door.
Yeah, that's
so you
crazy.
Open the door and it's a wall of snow, and it's like I would lose my mind. I'd feel so claustrophobic.
I mean, we're kind of in the snow belt here too.
Oh yeah, we get it here too, but I find snow personally offensive. So every time it snows, I feel like it's a shot at me personally.
Yeah.
It's one of my shortcomings, one of the many. And I grew up in the snow belt and I continue to live in it. And every year I say, nobody hates snow more than I do. And I'm like, why am I here? I don't. And yet, here I am.
I think you wouldn't mind it so much in the Yukon though. Because it's like, first of all, it doesn't snow as much. And it's just kind of like permanently there, and it makes it really beautiful and quiet.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like it comes and then it gets gross.
Yeah.
It gets wet.
It's heavy.
Dogs pee on it.
Yes, they do.
Just
so people do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just builds up.
Yeah.
And then it melts. And it's of course dogs pee on snow in Whitehorse as well, but it's I don't know. It's not as bad.
Yeah, I can imagine it. The temperatures must be pretty heavy though. Like that's cold. That's really cold.
Yeah.
But you went there. How long were you there? A couple of years?
Like lived there?
Yeah.
9 years.
Oh, 9. It was longer.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Almost.
So you
or 8. Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah. And you were also living in Sweden part of the time too, though, right? No, you weren't.
No, but I spend a lot of time.
You're there a lot
in Sweden. Yeah,
yeah, because you must have family there and that kind of stuff.
I do.
Right? Yeah. Oh man. So you, one of my favorite stories is how you met your manager.
Sean.
Tell the manager story. I use this as an illustration all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, I was playing a show in Oakville. I can't remember the place now, but 2 people came to the show.
2 people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of them happened to know, I think she was the mom of the girlfriend of my current manager, his ex-girlfriend. And she loved the show, and I ended up just being like, well, I'm just going to put on the best show that I know how to do, even though there's only 2 people here.
It's really disheartening, isn't it? When you step up and the room is empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that you should always do your best anyways. And give those 2 people the best show that you can give them. And anyways, so she loved the show, and then she ended up buying the record and sending it to my manager. And then a little while after that, he emailed me, and we've been working together ever since.
I use this as an illustration all the time. That's an important lesson, because anybody who starts in music is going to play that show.
Yeah.
Probably several times. And it's super easy to get annoyed and frustrated and we like lose the heart for it. And I always say to people, here's a story about my friend Sarah.
Yeah.
And you always play the best you can. You always give it everything you got, because you don't know who one of those 2 people might be.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of those kinds of shows. Like, one time I played a Breakout West showcase, and it was like, kind of had like, not the best room, you know what I mean? Not the best sound. It was right next to, I don't know if you've played like the Exchange in the club in Regina.
No, I haven't.
But it's like one really big venue. And right next to it is a really small venue.
Right.
And I was playing the really small one, and there was like a loud rock band in the other one. And so, you know, we were like, well, that's kind of discouraging. You know what I mean?
So as you're playing, is the sound bleeding through from the other venue into your room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. So, but, you know, same thing. We're just like, well, let's just play our show and get through it.
Yeah.
And it turned out that the guy who books The Great Escape in Glastonbury in the UK had gone to the other room, but then didn't really like that one. So he just went into our room. And then he became like my biggest fan and booked me for The Great Escape the next year. And also he told everyone about me. And that got me Iceland Airwaves and like a bunch of other stuff as well.
Wow.
So yeah, you just never know, basically.
It's at the end of the day, you know, you take steps to get your music in front of people and to build an image and do whatever. At the end of the day, it's still good songs performed well.
Yeah.
At the root of it all is that you've got to have that together.
Yes.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means you've got to pluck up your courage and pluck up your heart to go play a room that kind of sucks or a crowd that's kind of disappointing. I heard somebody say one time, and it's always stuck with me as well, that if you're there and it's a small crowd, it's like, don't get upset at the people who aren't there. Give your best to the people who are there.
Yeah.
You know, reward those people with your best. And as a professional, you should always give your best anyways, but everybody's still human.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really hard to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like, you know, you can take steps to like, if it's really disheartening and you can't give your best, then, you know, you can rethink where you're playing or your strategies or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, once you're there, I think that's what you got to do.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if every artist, every band has had this experience of driving. I've already talked about this on the podcast with somebody else, with Kurt Dahl from One Bad Son.
Mm-hmm.
We've all had that experience of driving 2 or 3 hours, setting up in a strange town and playing to chairs.
Yeah.
And driving back home again and getting home at 4 a.m. And you ask yourself, why do we just do that? What's the point?
Yeah.
I've been guilty of this myself many times. But sometimes there is one person in that audience that changes your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if not, sometimes you've got to look at it as paying dues. Like people still have to pay dues.
Like, you know, even now for me, it's like I'll have great shows and then I'll have like a really bad one. And, you know, where you're like, oh, why am I doing this? You know?
Yeah.
But then something always ropes you back in.
Right. For every challenge, there will be, a pleasure.
Yeah.
You know?
Or, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. But if you have this sort of feeling like the universe will deliver one kindness for every, you know, I don't know. Is that something you've subscribed to, this sort of universal thing that things will fall into place, or are you more pragmatic about things?
I think that is what I subscribe to. I kind of always just had this like strange, non-rational faith that it was all going to work out and be okay.
Yeah.
And that somehow, you know, even though I didn't have like, you know, parents who knew anything about music or, you know, any family in the music business or nothing, hardly any friends who played music, and coming to another country, I was like, well, it's going to work out somehow. And somehow, I've come this far. So.
And you've come very far.
Yeah.
I mean, how many records now?
4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And continuing to tour and getting opportunities and doing really, really well.
Yeah.
You just were involved in a theater production.
Yes, I'm still involved in it.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I'm working with storyteller and author Ivan Coyote from Vancouver, and we wrote a storytelling music show together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
We just knew that we wanted to work together, and I think we both really respect each other's art and wanted to collaborate on something. And Ivan's done a bunch of that kind of stuff before, so they worked with Ray Spoon on a book and a show as well. And they've worked with Dan Mangan and Veda Hilly and a bunch of people. So I was the only one in this equation who was didn't have any experience like this. But so far I've learned a lot, and it's been really rewarding.
Yeah. So you've written the music for this?
Yes, I wrote the score and the songs. Yeah, so I wrote the songs, and then I wrote for a quartet. So it's a trombone, clarinet, flute, and bass.
Do you actually play those instruments?
No, I don't.
No,
I wish I played the trombone. It's actually one of the things I would love to play.
You can do that. People love trombone.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, because you are actually musically trained to be able to do this. Yeah.
To write?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a degree in composition.
Right. So this is, you had some background to bring into this.
Yes. But I had to be reminded because I kind of forgot.
Well, it's like any
I did
other
my
muscle.
degree, and then I basically went on the road and just, became a singer-songwriter, and then, lost that muscle.
Yeah.
Or it didn't lose it, but it was
it had to be
in the background.
It had to be, you needed a shower to go to with that, to use it every day. So there it was. And so the show has debuted, right? It's out. It's happening.
Yes.
How's it been so far?
Great. So far we have had, sold out rooms, and standing ovations every time.
What's the show called?
And I love the people involved.
Yeah.
It's called Trader Time.
Yeah.
And right now we're planning our fall. So in November, December, we're going to do some Canadian dates.
Great.
And then in the spring, we're going to do some Europe dates.
Awesome.
And we have the Scandinavian embassies all involved.
Oh,
helping us to set it up in Scandinavia.
What's the concept behind the story, generally speaking?
It's a bunch of interconnected stories about family in the North and, personal stories and universal stories.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of written around this radio show that's been ongoing in Whitehorse for a really long time called Trader Time, where it's like a call-in. It's still going. You can call in and, be like, I have, 50 pounds of moose meat to trade for a baby carriage. And, which is actually one of the calls that Ivan remembers from a child.
That's so funny.
From being a child.
Yeah.
And, so, all the stories are kind of based around, call-ins and, some that we made up around the stories.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is a great hook for a performance like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine it's probably pretty funny and it's touching and.
Yeah. It's got the humor and it's got, the heartfelt stories, which, Ivan is kind of an expert at writing those kind of stories. And also, pretty heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And then it opened up for me to try some different approaches to songwriting and like write songs that I wouldn't maybe necessarily, write for my record.
Absolutely,
or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's been really freeing that way and super fun.
This feeling, I can sense like not that you needed it, but like a re-energization kind of. I don't even think that's a word, but I can just kind of feel it off you. Like it was like it opened up something for you.
Well, I think also because it, came like I really started working on it right after I finished this record. So right. I was depleted.
I bet you were.
My own record and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But this sort of gave me some more energy and like interest and, excitement in especially like writing for the different instruments and, and we just found the best group as well to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they touring with the show?
They are, people? Yeah. They're touring with the show. I think we're going to record a record also.
Oh, that's awesome.
Of all the songs.
I was going to say, there should be like a soundtrack, yeah.
Yeah, like live off the floor kind of thing.
That's great.
Because they're just, the trombone and clarinet and flute player, they're all part of like, the best musicians in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And the bassist and / keyboard player, we actually have like 2 bassists, and they both play in my band, so it's Chris plays with me normally, and so does Anna. And so he kind of
like,
yeah,
great.
He goes between, playing bass if Anna's not there or keyboards. And he also plays alto sax. So he has an alto sax part that I wrote as well.
Oh, that's great.
So it's kind of a, a really flexible band. The clarinet player plays keyboard too. And, they're just honestly the best people.
That's great.
Yeah. I love working with them.
That's really cool when a project like that comes together and you finish it. Yeah. Not that it's finished, but it exists.
Yeah. It's really satisfying.
Lots of people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's do something together. We should do something. And then it never happens.
Yeah.
You actually.
Well, we got a grant. So then we're like, okay, I guess we better.
I guess we better do it now. Yeah. The government has spoken.
We just like, because both of us are so busy with our own careers that, it's actually kind of a miracle that we pulled it off.
But, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it. I did an interview, a conversation, as I call it, with Denny Gauthier.
Yeah. Our
mutual friend. And that's this whole thing. I was like, Denny, how did all this happen? I don't know. You just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And that's his whole approach. I don't know.
Well, there are, like you said, there are a lot of people that just talk about doing stuff and never do.
Yeah.
And, now you started your podcast. You just did it. And
yeah, you just do it. And I didn't know what I was doing, really.
Yeah.
I still kind of don't.
No, but
we're working it out.
You're doing it.
Eventually it'll be better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nothing to do with the guests. It's just how I put it together and how I record it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you just do it.
Yeah.
And you just did it. And now this thing exists and you're touring it across here and Europe.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole other thing,
mm-hmm.
which I bet energizes your own stuff in some way.
It definitely does. It absolutely does. And it crosses over a little bit because I used some of my songs and like rearranged them for the play from the record. And
great.
Then I also, now I'm thinking like maybe one of the songs that I wrote for this, I'm going to put on my next record.
Great.
So it sort of gives you a bit of a starting point too. And like, somewhere to go.
For a new project.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like some sort of beautiful bridge.
That's great. It's awesome.
And it's also just nice for me to like not be the leader all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
it's a different kind of pressure.
Yeah. It's good though because I'm always the leader.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's what I choose to be and what I want, but at the same time it's also really nice to share with other people.
No, it can be exhausting, right? You have to be responsible for everything ultimately.
Yeah.
So that's hard. So we do in the show is we end with 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Same 3 questions every time. And you can choose to answer them or not answer them.
Okay.
As you see fit. And the first question I always ask is, what are you working on about yourself these days?
What am I working on?
This is supposed to be a semi-motivational podcast, you see. So I always ask people, what are you working on?
I think I'm working on, right now, my own grounding. So, like, what do I need, as a traveling person? How do I, keep my sanity? I try to figure out how I can, be grounded in myself. And that's partly through having a home and deciding that that's actually something that I need.
Yeah.
But also sort of inner meditation kind of thing. And I used to meditate quite a bit when I was younger, and then I got away from it, and now I'm trying to get back into that.
I have a lot of trouble with meditation.
Yeah.
I genuinely try. And I'm one of those people for whom meditation actually tends to increase my anxiety. It's like this isn't working, and I get more and more tense as it goes on,
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that really difficult.
Maybe you should try a different kind of meditation that's more like a relaxation, where you don't have to really, maybe start with something super simple.
I think I probably have the wrong objectives.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for epiphanies, and maybe that's not really what it's about.
Yeah. And maybe that's why you need meditation.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't think it's supposed to be easy. That's why otherwise everyone would do it all.
I suppose.
I feel think of monks who do it their whole lives and don't, reach enlightenment or whatever.
I guess. What are your comforts on the road? What? Because the road is weird.
Yeah.
And you kind of go around from town to town, and you have this odd schedule, and people, kind of fall at your feet in certain places, and you're such a celebrated presence, and then you move on.
Yeah.
To the next place that's excited to see you, and it can become this really odd existence.
Yeah.
You lose touch with regular things like making your own dinner and cleaning up after it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's so exciting to come home and make dinner.
Really?
Yeah, it is. I'm always oh my God, I can come to my own place and make my own food that I want to make. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's I've been pretty lucky with road food, I guess.
Yeah.
In a lot of the places I've gone to, but I don't know if I've had that excitement about coming home and making my own food. But it's for me, it's okay, I come home and it's the next morning, and we clean out the cat litter box and we do the garbage and whatever, and it's immediately you're back into domestic mode.
There's a humbleness that comes, when you come home, where it's oh yeah, things are real still. Things are real still.
Not everywhere I go am I some sort of hero.
Yeah, you're not going to get applause,
That's right. That's right.
Your partner doesn't care.
Right. Yeah, your partner's
she cares about the garbage.
Yeah, and it sort of rolls her eyes at, okay, all right, here he comes.
Yeah.
What does anchor you when you're out there?
Well, I think, the shows themselves. Sometimes my English turns into Swedish.
Is that what just happened?
Just where I'm I start thinking in Swedish, and then my lips move weird. Yeah. I think the shows themselves, and also hotel rooms. I like to, first of all, I always like to go to the same hotels if I can.
Oh, really?
And, I bring lavender and stuff like that so that I can spray it on my bed so everywhere smells similar.
It's like a simulated home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, you saw my bedroom up here.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of on purpose made it look like a hotel because
what a great idea.
I sort of feel mostly at home in hotels.
Well,
it's weird.
You spend a lot of time in them.
I do. Yeah. So when I for your listeners, I recently bought my first bed ever.
Yay.
Which is kind of funny and very exciting. But I chose one that sort of looks like a Scandinavian hotel bed.
It's a little bit spa-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sarah's just had a bunch of renos and stuff done on her place, so she was showing me around. And yeah, it's kind of like a spa up there. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an interesting concept, making the road feel like home and vice versa.
Yeah.
It keeps you centered a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And there is, as much as being on tour is weird, there is a kind of schedule to it.
Yes.
There's a structure to it. You know?
I actually find it harder sometimes to come home because then then I have to make my own structure.
Right. You don't have to check out at 10. You don't have to be at the venue
exactly.
at X. You don't have to be on stage at.
Yeah. And it's disorienting.
Yeah.
When you're used to always having that schedule, to suddenly be like, well, I can do anything now. I want.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a job to go to. So like some people come home and have a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally understand it. The second question I ask is, what are you most excited about right now?
Right this moment.
At this moment.
I'm going to Vancouver tomorrow and I'm going to see my dog. I'm very excited.
How long has it been since you saw your dog?
I left, when did I leave? April 7th. So 3 weeks.
How did your dog obviously flew to Vancouver at some point?
Yes, he did. I flew him
to
Vancouver.
You flew him there? Okay.
And then, so then I started this last trip from Vancouver, but then I decided I needed to come back here to London because I have my house here. And like you said, it's just been going through reno, so no one's lived here for 6 months.
Right.
So I spent the last week constantly cleaning.
Yeah.
And finally you can breathe in here.
It's lovely.
Yeah. So I didn't want to bring my dog back.
I see.
Until it's clean.
And you miss your puppy.
I do. I really miss him. Yeah.
He's a cutie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good thing to be excited about. What's happening post Vancouver? You're heading out there, and then where to?
I'm doing a few shows around there, and then I'm coming back here for like 2 days, and then I head to the States on a 2-week tour.
Oh, where are you going down there?
Where am I going? Yeah. Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, New York. I'm doing a live session with the Day Trotter session.
Oh, wow.
At the Paste magazine.
How cool is that?
Headquarters in New York, so awesome. Which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And then where else? Philadelphia.
Right.
And maybe a couple more shows like in Nashville. I don't know if they've been confirmed, but yeah.
Good for you. Are you taking anybody with you? Or are you going solo?
I'm going solo, but I'm going with another singer-songwriter, Ben Kunder from Toronto.
Ben Kunder. I know that name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Good for you. Oh, that's really exciting. How do you do in the States? Do you like playing down there?
I've only really toured there twice before, and, in different areas. So I've done sort of the Midwest once, and I've played New York. And then I've done like a Texas kind of, go down to Texas up through California.
Texas is like its own little country.
Yeah, I love Texas.
Like there are people.
I love it.
I recently toured down there for the first time, and there are people who have a wonderful, prominent, successful career. Oh,
and they never leave Texas.
They just play Texas.
No, there's 50 million people in Texas.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's like this
You don't have to leave.
No, it's just, there's cities and everybody's great.
And they love songs. They love songwriters.
Oh, yeah.
They love music. But what I loved about going to Texas especially is that they love the song so much, because you don't have that in Canada in the same way.
Interesting.
Where it's like here, people love music here, but they don't have like the focus on the song and the songwriter in the same way.
There's a whole thing.
Whereas in Texas, it's like that's their thing.
Yeah, the Texas songwriter thing, And they seem to be pretty open, actually. Like you have it in your mind that you go down there and it's going to be all country and bluegrass and whatever. It's not,
No. I was surprised they like me as much as they did. But
they have that, but Texas also produces Pantera.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a range there.
Yeah.
And I found it to be a really interesting and cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was going to Texas, but I'm not on this one.
You can hook up a tour and do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real pain for Canadian artists to go to the States.
Yes.
And with visas, and it can be super duper expensive.
It's frustrating.
So it's like people haven't necessarily toured down there as much as you might think. Europe is so much easier. They don't like
Canadians down there. I don't know.
They don't? I don't know. The government wants to tap every musician who comes in, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And heaven help you if you try to sneak in.
Oh yeah, that's not a good idea.
No, but Europe is super duper easy. You just show up and play, and it's fine, and off you go. Do you have like an EU passport or anything like that?
I do.
You do. So it's even easier for you. But
the only place it makes a difference is in England at this point,
right? At
least until they do Brexit.
However that goes. You've played in Britain quite a bit, though, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I never have. I never have. Yeah, eventually.
It's I love playing there, but it's also like harder because there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of music in the country, and so they don't pay in the same way.
I see
that. Germany does, because also the government doesn't support venues in that same way.
Yeah,
they used to, but I think they cut a bunch of their funding in 2009, and so I think what makes a big difference in Germany is that they have a lot of government support for venues, so they can take chances.
Right, and they can pay musicians honorably.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not always like that, but I'll get to England to play eventually.
I love England.
I've been to England, but never in that capacity. I'd like to.
I like Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know lots of people who play in Ireland a lot, like the Pat Maloney's and Tiz McNamara and those people.
Well, Tiz is from Ireland.
Tiz is from Ireland, so obviously he plays there, but he spends a lot of time in Canada now, so I kind of almost lump him in with the Canadian scene. But Ireland is so small, though. It's like you can't play so many. It's not sustainable there. Like you need to branch.
It doesn't seem like it.
Ireland is not Texas.
Like I think if you're an Irish artist, I don't think you can just stay in Ireland.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but you're proximal to Like we encountered a band. What's going on?
My ice maker.
It's plotting. That and the dishwasher are talking to each other.
I don't know what's going on.
I would be careful tonight. Sleep with like
it's gonna eat me up.
Your finger on the power breaker for the kitchen. Just make ready to.
Yeah.
We ran into a band from Scotland, I think, when we were in wherever we were, Germany probably. No, we were maybe even in the Netherlands that time. So I mean, the bands, they jump over from the UK and play all over Europe, and it's
they take Ryanair, and it's like $50.
Yeah, it's
except it's like $100 to bring your guitar. But yeah,
well, Europe is so great for that though, because there are just endless places to go and play. There's just all these countries crammed together. In Canada, if you drive 10 hours in certain parts of the country. My next gig is 10 hours away because that's the nearest place. 10 hours, you can go through 3 or 4 countries over there. Like it's pretty fabulous. And the States is kind of like that too. Like there's just so much more opportunity
more
there.
people.
Yeah, but the
More
States
towns.
it's just such a pain to go there. So it's prohibitive right now anyways.
Ugh, yeah.
But you're going because that's a huge market that if you can get
I
a
am
foothold
going.
in it.
You know, I was a little bit like, should I even go to the States?
The whole Trump thing?
Do you want to? Yeah, because it's like, I mean, not just because of, not wanting to support Trump, but
the people need you now more than ever, Sarah.
That's a thing. Yeah. I think they do need music now more than ever. And, you just don't bring up politics.
Just entertain the folks. Give them a good time.
Yeah.
You know, they need it. God love them. The last question I ask is, what's your message to my audience? What's your gift to my people?
I'd say stay the course. Do what you feel, is in your heart, and just keep working on it and keep, don't be discouraged, and everything will work out. Yeah.
I tend to agree. It's hard sometimes though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, if you know that that's where you want to go, I think the universe goes that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe so. It's certainly working for you.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing great. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna end this in your kitchen.
Yeah.
This is a great little studio. I'm probably going to do more interviews here. If you just give me the code, I'll just
Anytime.
have people come in and sit down. We'll live from Sarah.
You should do that.
Live from Sarah's kitchen.
I'm never here. So.
Yeah. No, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks so much.
I'll give you your own code.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Live. I might just move in. It's nice space. My wife would be pleased to get rid of me for a while. I'll bring one of my cats. It'd be great. Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
Great seeing you.
Yeah, you as well.
And good luck with all the stuff out there.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the podcast.
Thank you. Well, we'll have you back on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you once again, gentle listener, for taking in today's show. For the record, the novel I couldn't remember about technology coming to life is Robopocalypse by Daniel H. Wilson. Also for the record, the first Terminator movie is by far the best of the franchise in my humble opinion. I want to thank Sarah MacDougall again for being on today's show. If you want to know more about Sarah and the rest of my guests, go to www.john-huff.com. That's JOHN-HUFF.com. If you're an Apple Podcasts or iTunes listener, please do me a favor and leave a rating and review of the show. It will help me very, very much. That's all for this week, but I'll be back very soon. Until then, keep your wits about you, and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. Let's go Raptors. Let's go Raptors. Winning is fun.